Back out on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta, reminding you, you can follow me on Twitter at JMCH316. Of course, we ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Review the show, give us some likes, give us some thoughts, give us some feedback about what we're doing. Tell us what's going on with this program. Want to tell you about my friends before we get back into the Hawks discussion. Talk to you about Rock Auto, RockAuto.com. And listen, we know in today's ever-increasing world of all the different makes, models, all the different things going on with cars, it's pretty much impossible for your local box store to be able to stock all the different types of parts that you need, right? And then you feel kind of like a schmo going in and asking all these different questions, and you got to figure out, is this an LX, an EX, an FX, an MX, a DX? I mean, whatever all of this kind of stuff is. And then they're going on their computer behind the counter and they're pretty much just choosing whatever brand that they happen to carry out there. That's not always the most efficient way to do all of that. So listen, you go to rockauto.com, you're going to save time, you're going to save money. Whereas you're paying 30, 50, or even 100% more from part stores, the box stores that you're going to, here's a chance to save yourself some money. So it's a family business. They've been doing this for over 20 years now. It's reliably low prices for every customer that's out there. And they've got everything that you need in all sorts of makes, models, brands. You need brakes, you need tail lamps, you need motor oil, you need carpet for your vehicle. They've got all of those things available to you at rockauto.com. So go use the website and play around with it today, rockauto.com. And here's what I want you to do. When you go on the website and you find something that you like, they're going to ask you in a box that says, how did you hear about us? Okay. So when you go to rockauto.com, in the box where it says, how did you hear about us? I want you to type in Locked On, LOCKEDON, Locked On, so that they know that we sent you over there. So rockauto.com's got amazing selection, low prices, all the parts that you're ever going to need. It's rockauto.com. All right, as we continue to talk here about the Hawks and, potential fallout from what may or may not happen, this is what I've consistently believed, is that if the Hawks somehow don't get out of the play-in round and get into a regular playoff scenario, obviously they'll play the Miami Heat if they get out of the play-in round and get into a 7-game series. If they don't get out of the play-in round, though, I do think that Tony Ressler, the owner of the Hawks, will make some, I don't know if knee-jerk reaction or if a, over the top, just reaction of the season. I think that he's going to do something. And I think it's going to affect either Travis Schlenk, the general manager, or it's going to affect Nate McMillan. Yeah, I know they just signed Nate McMillan to a 4-year extension and all that kind of stuff. But hell, the Hawks are going to get the luxury tax and everything else. I promise you, if Tony Ressler is not happy, he'll fork over whatever cash he has to do to move on and get the best guy that's in here. I think if the Hawks get themselves into one of the 7-game series and all that, I think everybody is good to go and they'll make their moves in the offseason. And we'll address that as once the Hawks get done with this year, we'll talk about where the Hawks have to go and things like that. Do I think Nate McMillan is on the hot seat going into next year? Like I said, I think it depends on if the Hawks stumble their way out of this play-in round. Because let's be honest, and there are built-in excuses, right? We had COVID, we had all these guys that we had to play, we lost John Collins for a big stretch, this, that, and the other. All right. But that doesn't change some of the basic things about you've not been a very good defensive team. Trae Young has been better this year, but what guys have been better? How much has DeAndre Hunter gotten better this year? At times he looks like he's going to be a terrific young player. At times he looks like he's lost. Times he can't stop anybody. Times he can't shoot. The other guy that they were counting on, quote unquote counting on, I say, but was Cam Reddish, right? Yeah, he got the playoff, all the stuff that I heard about Cam Reddish. And then he's traded. He's out of here, off to New York. Hasta lasagna, don't get any on you, right? And he did nothing up there, but he did nothing here as well. His 2 big 30-point plus games, they lost both of those games. So when he went off and scored all these points and everything like that, they didn't win a single one of those games. Either of those games that he had. So he didn't develop. DeAndre Hunter hasn't developed. How much has Kevin Huerter gotten better this year? Is Bogey or Gallinari better? Was John Collins better? I think John Collins played at times much better, but there were also big moments for this team that he didn't show up, that he was a non-factor. I remember the one Toronto game, whatever, that they played on the road where Trae wasn't in and he was just a non-factor. Now, there were times when he had a chance to step it up or times when they needed him to be that 28-point, 14-board kind of night guy where they needed that performance from him and didn't get it. And there were times when he played fantastic. I'm not going to take anything away from John Collins, but obviously with him being hurt, the way we measure his season, and again, this is a guy that they put a lot of money into to be their quote unquote, arguably their second player out of all of this, but it just didn't materialize. So you didn't really see guys get better. I mean, I think Trae is a better player now. And he's asked to do everything. I mean, he's arguably had as good a season, but I'll give you a perfect example. Look at Giannis this year, okay? For a guy who's been a 2-time MVP and a defensive player of the year and an NBA champion, as his team kind of faltered and fluttered and kind of middling and all that kind of stuff, he turned it on. And they won a whole bunch of games, and they're now second in the Eastern Conference. And you can make a case that he has played better this year than either of his MVP seasons. For a guy that's been first team All-NBA, 2-time MVP, defensive player of the year, all those things. Now, I understand he's got help, but that doesn't change the fact that he himself has played better and made a big impact on his team. Meanwhile, the Hawks haven't been able to get over that hump. So I do think that some of that, when you talk about player development, your young guys, this, that, and the other, we also know, too, that there's a hesitancy from Nate McMillan to play some of his younger guys. They haven't dipped into the G League to pull up some of their young guys that are down there and just give them a shot. I mean, if you're telling me that there's effort and this and that, well, why not go get some of those guys that are hungry down there in the G League and give them a shot and say, okay, let's see if you guys are hungry. Let's see if you guys want it. Let's see if you guys want to play out there, especially like on a Tuesday night in Detroit, instead of coming out after a loss like that and telling me, well, we didn't have the effort tonight. And, we got to be better prepared mentally and all this. I don't want to hear that stuff for a team that's supposed to be one of the best in the NBA. And then when your star player comes out at the beginning of the season and says, we're just not as excited about the regular season. We won't get to playoffs and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Well, now all of that stuff is here. So all of this other stuff about, we didn't want to play in the regular season. We didn't have effort. We didn't have this. We weren't mentally into it and all this kind of stuff. Okay. That's all past you now. Now is when Nate McMillan and the Hawks have to show who they really are. And look, 1,000% believe that they're going to beat Charlotte coming up tomorrow night. They're at home. They've been playing well. I know Charlotte's, split with them and they held Trae to the. Okay, I got all that. Okay. But this is supposed to be different, right? This is what we were sold on of now it's going to be different, right? So now is when the Hawks play better, when Nate McMillan coaches better, when Trae Young keeps elevating his team. I most likely believe that John Collins will not be a part of all of this. I don't think he's going to play in either play-in round, and who knows if he'll even play in the first round, but certainly we're not going to see him most likely tomorrow night. I know Chris Kirshner locally watched him warm up against Houston in their final regular season game and said he could, wasn't making shots and had the splint on his hand and just, on his finger and all that, and just couldn't do a whole lot. So I don't expect to see John Collins, but at the same time, they've played since before the All-Star break without John Collins. Right? I mean, you've had plenty of time to figure out your rotations and all this kind of stuff and figure some things out. So this is where you're at, but this is where you wanted to be, right? I'm not saying that they wanted to specifically be in a play-in round, trying to win 2 games. I'm talking about now we're in the postseason. And now this is where you guys are supposed to shine. And I'm going to be curious to see what Nate McMillan does because, like I said, I think it's been a mixed bag. Yeah, the East has definitely gotten better, but weren't the Hawks supposed to also be better? Weren't they supposed to be better when you talk about they were 2 wins better year over year with 10 additional games, when I'm talking about the Cavs and the Bulls and the Raptors and the Celtics and the Heat, 13, 15, 21, 15, 22, all those kinds of things. I thought we'd be better out there. And I think Nate McMillan has to help get this team to step up as we get ready for the play-in rounds. All right, when we get back, some early Braves thoughts. It was not a good night at the ballpark last night as the Braves got blown out in their first game against the Washington Nationals. Sort of just a thought about or two about where we stand right now. It is Jon Chuckery. It's hitting hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.